Think Senegal is just about peanuts and French colonial history? Wait until you find out about the pink lake that turns people into living salt statues, the hereditary caste system that's stricter than medieval Europe, and the hospitality culture so extreme that saying no to a stranger is literally illegal in some regions. Number 15. Senegal operates a legal polygamy system where men can marry up to 4 wives simultaneously, but only if the first wife signs a written contract agreeing to share her husband. You heard right. This West African nation has turned polygamy into a bureaucratic process requiring paperwork, signatures, and legal documentation that would make American divorce lawyers jealous. The system works through official marriage contracts where the first wife must explicitly choose between a monogamous marriage or agreeing to polygamous arrangements before the wedding ceremony even begins. Once she signs the polygamy agreement, her husband can legally marry additional wives without further consultation. But if she chooses monogamy, any subsequent marriages become illegal and punishable by imprisonment. Here's the fascinating part. Approximately 47% of Senegalese women choose the polygamy option, believing that sharing household duties and childcare responsibilities with co-wives provides better work-life balance than managing everything alone. The wives often develop close friendships and business partnerships, pooling resources to start joint ventures while their shared husband rotates between households on predetermined schedules. Modern Senegalese women increasingly negotiate detailed clauses in these contracts, specifying everything from the maximum number of co-wives allowed to requirements for separate living quarters and equal financial support. The legal system treats each wife equally in terms of inheritance rights and child custody, creating complex family structures where children might have 15 to 20 half-siblings from different mothers, all sharing the same legal father. Number 14. Senegal's traditional griot caste system creates a hereditary social hierarchy so rigid that griots cannot marry outside their caste and are simultaneously the most despised and most essential members of society. Think medieval Europe had strict social classes? Think again. Senegal maintains an ancient caste system where griots, traditional storytellers, and musicians occupy the lowest social position yet wield enormous cultural power that terrifies even wealthy elites. Griots inherit their profession through bloodlines stretching back over 800 years, with no possibility of changing careers or social status regardless of education, wealth, or personal achievement. They serve as living libraries, memorizing thousands of genealogies, historical events, and family secrets spanning generations, making them simultaneously invaluable and dangerous to powerful families. Here's the scary part. Griots possess the cultural authority to publicly shame anyone by reciting their family's embarrassing history, failed business deals, or ancestral scandals in sung verse that spreads throughout communities like medieval gossip networks. Even millionaire business owners and government officials fear griots because social reputation in Senegal depends entirely on public perception, and a griot's song can destroy decades of carefully built respect overnight. The caste system operates so strictly that griots face social ostracism if they attempt relationships with non-griots, while simultaneously being excluded from regular social gatherings, religious ceremonies, and business partnerships. Despite their low status, griots earn substantial incomes through their monopoly on entertainment at weddings, naming ceremonies, and political events, with some earning more than doctors or lawyers while remaining socially untouchable. Number 13. Lake Retba, Senegal's famous pink lake, is so salty that workers must coat their bodies in shea butter to prevent their skin from dissolving during salt harvesting. Sounds unbelievable, but this natural wonder contains salt concentrations of 380 grams per liter, nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean, creating water so corrosive that, honestly, unprotected human skin begins breaking down within 30 minutes of exposure. The lake's cotton candy pink color comes from salt-loving bacteria called Dunaliella salina, which produce red pigments to survive the extreme salinity that would kill most life forms instantly. Salt harvesters, primarily women, work 6 to 8 hours daily standing waist-deep in this caustic pink soup, using only wooden tools because metal equipment corrodes and disintegrates within weeks. The shea butter coating process is ritualistic and essential. Workers spend 45 minutes each morning applying thick layers of pure shea butter to every inch of exposed skin, creating a protective barrier that must be reapplied every 2 hours to prevent chemical burns. Here's the incredible part. Despite these extreme conditions, salt harvesting provides the primary income for over 3,000 families who have developed extraordinary physical adaptations, including thickened skin on their feet and hands that, honestly, resembles leather after years of salt exposure. The salt is so pure that it requires no processing. Workers simply pile it into perfect white pyramids along the shoreline where it dries naturally, creating a landscape that looks like an alien planet covered in geometric snow formations. Each harvester can collect 25 to 30 kilograms of salt daily, earning about $2 to $3 per day in an economy where most rural workers earn less than $1 daily, making this dangerous work relatively lucrative despite the health risks. Number 12. Senegal's Teranga hospitality culture legally requires citizens to feed any stranger who asks for food, making it technically illegal to refuse meals to visitors. Wait until you find out that Senegal has essentially criminalized inhospitality, creating a society where saying no to hungry strangers can result in social punishment more severe than actual legal penalties. The word Teranga literally means to help someone come ashore in Wolof, reflecting ancient traditions of assisting travelers and strangers that have evolved into mandatory social obligations enforced through community pressure and traditional justice systems. If a stranger approaches any Senegalese household requesting food, the family is culturally and legally bound to provide a meal, even if it means reducing their own portions or going hungry themselves. Here's the amazing part. This system operates so effectively that Senegal has virtually eliminated homelessness and starvation in rural areas, as no person can remain hungry when every door they knock on must provide assistance. The practice extends beyond food to include shelter, medical care, and financial assistance, creating a nationwide social safety net that functions more reliably than government welfare programs. Families budget extra money monthly specifically for Teranga expenses, knowing that unexpected guests will regularly appear requiring meals, accommodation, and support that cannot be refused without facing severe social consequences. Children learn Teranga obligations from infancy, taught that refusing hospitality brings shame upon their entire extended family and can result in community boycotts that destroy business relationships and social connections. The system creates fascinating economic dynamics where wealthy families regularly host dozens of strangers monthly, while poor families sacrifice their own meals to maintain their Teranga reputation, leading to complex resource-sharing networks that redistribute wealth through mandatory generosity rather than taxation. Number 11. Traditional Senegalese wrestling called lam requires wrestlers to cast magic spells on opponents before matches, with spiritual preparation often more important than physical training. You heard right. Senegal's national sport operates more like medieval witchcraft than modern athletics, with wrestlers spending more time with spiritual advisors than in gyms preparing for competitions. Before every match, wrestlers undergo elaborate mystical ceremonies involving animal sacrifices, herb mixtures, protective amulets, and incantations designed to weaken opponents while strengthening their own spiritual power. The pre-match rituals can last several hours and cost thousands of dollars, with successful wrestlers employing teams of marabouts, traditional healers, and fortune-tellers who analyze opponents' spiritual vulnerabilities and design specific counterspells. Here's the wild part. Matches are often decided based on which wrestler's magic proves more powerful rather than physical strength or technique, with some competitors refusing to fight if their spiritual advisors detect dangerous supernatural threats from opponents. The spiritual preparation includes wearing specific colors, eating prescribed foods, avoiding certain people or places, and carrying elaborate collections of protective charms that, honestly, make wrestlers look more like mobile shrines than athletes. Spectators attend matches primarily to witness spiritual battles rather than physical competition, betting on which wrestler's magic will prove superior and analyzing mystical signs and omens throughout the event. The most successful wrestlers become folk heroes not for their athletic abilities but for their spiritual power, with some achieving almost religious status as people seek their blessings for business deals, romantic relationships, and personal protection. Modern wrestlers increasingly combine traditional spiritual practices with contemporary training methods, creating hybrid preparation systems that might include both weightlifting and animal sacrifices in the same weekly routine. Number 10. Senegal's national dish, thiboudien, is considered so sacred that improper preparation or serving can result in social exile from communities, with recipes guarded as closely as state secrets. Think food is just food? Think again. In Senegal, thiboudien isn't merely a meal but a cultural institution with preparation methods, ingredient combinations, and serving protocols so strictly regulated that violating traditions can destroy social relationships and business prospects permanently. The dish consists of fish, rice, and vegetables cooked in a precise sequence that takes 4 to 6 hours to complete properly, with each step requiring specific techniques passed down through maternal lineages for over 300 years. Women learn thiboudien preparation from their mothers and grandmothers through years of apprenticeship, with recipe variations serving as family signatures that identify the cook's ethnic group, social status, and regional origins to anyone familiar with the subtle differences. Here's the intense part: serving poorly prepared thiboudien at important gatherings like weddings, naming ceremonies, or religious festivals brings such profound shame that families have been known to relocate to different cities to escape the social stigma of culinary failure. The ingredient sourcing involves complex negotiations with specific vendors who maintain exclusive relationships with particular families, creating parallel economy systems where access to the best fish, vegetables, and spices depends on social connections rather than simple purchasing power. Restaurant versions of thiboudien are generally considered inferior approximations that lack the spiritual and cultural components essential to authentic preparation, making it nearly impossible for outsiders to experience true thiboudien without acceptance into Senegalese family structures. The cooking process requires constant attention and intuitive adjustments that cannot be taught through written recipes, as successful preparation depends on understanding subtle visual, aromatic, and textural cues that develop only through years of practice under expert supervision. Mothers-in-law use thiboudien preparation skills as primary criteria for evaluating potential daughters-in-law, with cooking ability often weighing more heavily than education, beauty, or family background in marriage arrangements. Number 9. Senegal operates a traditional age-set system called classes d'âge, where people born in the same year form lifelong social groups with collective responsibilities, including paying each other's debts and arranging marriages. Sounds like ancient history, but this social organization system remains actively practiced throughout Senegal, creating parallel support networks that function more reliably than government services or insurance programs. Everyone born within the same calendar year automatically becomes part of an age set that meets regularly throughout their lives to coordinate mutual assistance, resolve conflicts, and make collective decisions about members' major life events. The system operates with formal leadership structures, regular meetings, financial contributions, and social obligations that members cannot abandon without facing complete community ostracism and loss of access to essential support networks. Here's the remarkable part. Age sets collectively guarantee members' debts, meaning that if one person defaults on loans or business obligations, their entire age group becomes legally responsible for payment, creating powerful incentives for members to monitor each other's financial behavior and prevent irresponsible spending. The groups organize elaborate ceremonies marking each decade of their collective lives, with 40th, 50th, and 60th birthday celebrations involving entire communities and costing individual members thousands of dollars in mandatory contributions. Age sets arrange marriages between their children, coordinate educational expenses, provide startup capital for business ventures, and organize collective investments in real estate or agriculture that benefit all members throughout their lifetimes. The system creates fascinating intergenerational dynamics where younger age sets owe respect and service to older groups, while older age sets provide guidance and financial assistance to younger members, essentially functioning as formalized mentorship networks that span entire lifetimes. Members living in different countries maintain contact and continue contributing to their age sets through international money transfers, creating global networks of mutual obligation that connect Senegalese diaspora communities with their home villages through structured financial and social relationships. Number 8. In rural Senegal, traditional healers perform surgical operations using only herbal anesthetics and ritual tools, achieving success rates that rival modern hospitals for certain procedures. Wait until you find out that Senegal's traditional medical system includes complex surgical techniques passed down through generations of healers who perform operations that would require specialized medical degrees in Western countries. These traditional surgeons, called boko jour, specialize in procedures including cataract removal, tumor extraction, bone setting, and even brain surgery using only locally sourced plant medicines for anesthesia and sterilization. The anesthetic combinations involve precise mixtures of tree barks, root extracts, and leaf preparations that provide pain relief lasting 4 to 6 hours while maintaining patient consciousness, allowing surgeons to receive feedback during delicate operations. Here's the incredible part. Traditional cataract surgery in Senegal has a 92% success rate, comparable to modern ophthalmology, using techniques that involve creating precise incisions with sharpened thorns and removing clouded lenses with tools carved from specific types of hardwood. The surgical training requires 15 to 20 years of apprenticeship learning anatomy through cadaver dissection, developing manual dexterity through practice on animals, and memorizing hundreds of plant medicines and their precise dosages for different types of operations. Traditional surgeons maintain detailed case records using symbolic notation systems that document patient histories, surgical procedures, recovery times, and complications in ways that allow knowledge transfer between healers across generations. The operations take place in specially prepared outdoor spaces, cleaned with antimicrobial plant solutions, with patients supported by family members who assist in post-operative care, following detailed protocols for wound cleaning, medication administration, and rehabilitation exercises. Many patients seek traditional surgery specifically because it costs 90% less than hospital procedures, while providing culturally appropriate care that includes spiritual healing components alongside physical treatment, creating integrated healthcare experiences that address psychological and social aspects of illness that modern medicine often ignores. Number 7. Senegal's Casamance region operates as a semi-autonomous zone where local customs override national laws, including different currency systems, legal procedures, and marriage regulations. You heard right, this southern region of Senegal functions almost like a separate country within a country, maintaining its own government systems, cultural practices, and legal frameworks that frequently contradict official Senegalese legislation. The Casamance has been engaged in low-level independence movements for over 30 years, resulting in negotiated autonomy agreements that allow local communities to govern themselves according to traditional customs rather than national laws. The region operates parallel judicial systems where traditional chiefs resolve disputes through customary law procedures that can completely override decisions made by official Senegalese courts, creating complex legal situations where the same crime might receive different punishments depending on which authority system handles the case. Here's the fascinating part. Many Casamance communities use traditional currency systems based on cola nuts, cloth strips, and agricultural products for local transactions, while simultaneously accepting the official West African CFA franc for dealings with the broader Senegalese economy. Marriage laws in the Casamance follow ancient customs that allow polyandry, women having multiple husbands, in certain ethnic groups, directly contradicting Senegal's Islamic-influenced family law that only permits polygamy for men. The region maintains its own tax collection systems where communities pay tributes to traditional rulers rather than sending money to the national government, creating dual taxation situations that residents navigate through complex negotiations with both authority systems. Property ownership follows indigenous land tenure systems that recognize collective family ownership and communal resource management, often conflicting with national laws requiring individual property titles and formal registration procedures. The Casamance operates semi-independent educational systems teaching local languages and traditional knowledge alongside standard Senegalese curriculum, producing graduates who are culturally bilingual but sometimes struggle to integrate into national employment systems that prioritize different skills and knowledge bases. Number 6. Senegal's urban youth have created a parallel economy based on System D or débrouillardise, where elaborate bartering networks allow people to survive without using traditional money for months at a time. Think modern economics requires cash? Think again. Senegalese cities operate sophisticated underground economies where young people exchange goods, services, and favors through complex networking systems that function more efficiently than formal banking or employment structures. System D participants might trade mobile phone credit for transportation, exchange clothing repairs for meals, or provide tutoring services in return for housing, creating economic relationships that bypass traditional monetary transactions entirely. The system operates through social media networks, WhatsApp groups, and neighborhood organizations that coordinate exchanges, establish reputation systems, and resolve disputes without involving official authorities or financial institutions. Here's the amazing part. Successful System D operators can maintain middle-class lifestyles including smartphones, fashionable clothing, regular meals, and decent housing while earning less than $50 monthly in traditional wages, demonstrating the power of creative resource sharing and community cooperation. The networks include elaborate credit systems where participants accumulate social capital through providing services that can be redeemed later for major needs like medical expenses, educational fees, or business startup costs, essentially functioning as informal insurance and investment programs. Young entrepreneurs use System D to launch businesses by gathering necessary resources through exchanges rather than loans, starting ventures in fashion, technology, arts and services, with minimal cash investment while building customer bases through their existing exchange networks. The system challenges conventional economic theories by demonstrating how communities can create prosperity through cooperation and creativity, rather than capital accumulation, with some System D networks generating more wealth and opportunity for participants than formal employment in the struggling official economy. International development organizations increasingly study System D as a model for economic resilience that could be adapted in other countries facing unemployment, poverty, and limited access to traditional financial services. Number 5. Senegal's Lebu fishing communities practice Ndeup possession ceremonies where fishermen become spiritually possessed by ocean spirits to guarantee successful catches and protection from drowning. Sounds like ancient mythology, but these elaborate ritual practices remain essential components of modern Senegalese fishing operations, with crews refusing to go to sea without proper spiritual preparation and protection from supernatural marine forces. The Ndeup ceremonies involve dozens of participants including musicians, spiritual leaders, and community elders, who create intensive rhythmic environments designed to induce trance states where fishermen become vessels for powerful ocean spirits called Rab. During possession episodes that can last 6 to 8 hours, the spirits communicate through the fishermen's bodies, providing specific instructions about optimal fishing locations, weather predictions, and protective measures needed for upcoming voyages. Here's the incredible part. Fishing crews that follow spirit guidance consistently achieve catch rates 40 to 60% higher than boats using only modern navigation and fish-finding technology, leading even educated fishermen to maintain traditional spiritual practices alongside contemporary equipment. The possession experiences are physically and psychologically intense, with participants experiencing temporary personality changes, speaking in different voices, and demonstrating knowledge about ocean conditions that they couldn't have acquired through normal means. Communities invest substantial resources in Ndeup ceremonies, spending hundreds of dollars on animal sacrifices, special foods, ceremonial clothing, and payments to spiritual specialists, viewing these expenses as essential business investments rather than cultural entertainment. The spiritual preparation includes elaborate dietary restrictions, sexual abstinence, and ritual purification procedures that fishermen must follow for weeks before major fishing expeditions, creating lifestyle patterns that integrate supernatural beliefs with practical maritime activities. Modern Lebu fishermen often carry GPS devices and fish finders alongside traditional protective amulets and ceremonial items, creating hybrid technology spirituality systems that combine contemporary efficiency with ancestral wisdom in ways that optimize both safety and productivity on dangerous ocean waters. Number 4. Senegal's traditional surfacing ceremony requires teenage girls to undergo ritual scarification covering their entire bodies as proof of their readiness for marriage, with designs indicating their family status and marriageability. Wait until you find out about body modification practices that make Western tattoo culture look minimal by comparison. As young Senegalese women undergo extensive scarification procedures that transform their skin into living artwork displaying their identity, social position, and romantic availability. The scarification process begins around age 14 to 16, and can take 2 to 3 years to complete, involving hundreds of deliberate cuts made with razor-sharp tools that create raised keloid patterns covering the torso, arms, back, and sometimes face in intricate geometric designs specific to each ethnic group and family lineage. Each scar pattern communicates detailed information about the girl's tribal affiliation, family wealth, educational background, and personal qualities, essentially functioning as a permanent resume that potential suitors can read and interpret to assess compatibility and desirability. Here's the intense part. The scarification process is extremely painful and deliberately tests the girl's pain tolerance, emotional strength, and commitment to traditional values, with community members monitoring their reactions to determine their suitability for the demands of marriage and motherhood. The designs follow strict cultural rules about placement, size, and pattern complexity, with certain scarification styles reserved for nobility, religious families, or specific professions, creating visual caste systems that immediately communicate social hierarchy to anyone familiar with the symbolic meanings. Modern Senegalese women increasingly struggle with scarification traditions as urban employment and international travel become more important, with some choosing partial scarification or temporary alternatives, while others completely reject the practices despite family pressure and cultural expectations. The scarification artists, typically older women who have mastered the techniques through decades of practice, maintain secret knowledge about scar healing, infection prevention, and pattern meanings that they pass down only to selected apprentices, creating exclusive expertise that commands high prices and social respect. Many young women now migrate to cities specifically to avoid scarification requirements, contributing to cultural tensions between traditional rural values and modern urban lifestyles that prioritize individual choice over collective cultural preservation. Number 3. Senegal's Wolof language contains no word for thank you because expressing gratitude verbally is considered rude and insulting, implying that the recipient didn't expect generosity. Think politeness is universal? Think again. In Senegal's dominant culture, saying thank you suggests that kindness was unexpected rather than natural, creating one of the world's most counterintuitive etiquette systems, where gratitude must be expressed through actions rather than words. The Wolof philosophical framework assumes that helping others is a fundamental human obligation rather than optional kindness, making verbal appreciation unnecessary and potentially offensive because it implies surprise that someone fulfilled their basic social duties. Instead of saying thank you, Wolof speakers express appreciation through reciprocal actions, future favors, public recognition of the giver's generosity, and integration of the gift or service into ongoing relationship networks that demonstrate lasting value and respect. Here's the mind-blowing part. Tourists who repeatedly say thank you in Senegal often create social discomfort and confusion, as locals interpret the constant gratitude as evidence that foreigners view Senegalese people as naturally selfish or unreliable, rather than inherently generous. The absence of gratitude expressions extends throughout Wolof social interactions, including business transactions, family relationships, and romantic partnerships, where appreciation is demonstrated through loyalty, reciprocity, and public acknowledgement, rather than verbal acknowledgement of specific acts. Children learn this system from infancy, developing complex social skills around nonverbal appreciation, reciprocal obligation, and community recognition that create stronger interpersonal bonds than societies based on verbal gratitude and individual courtesy. The linguistic gap creates fascinating translation challenges when Wolof speakers learn other languages, as they must artificially acquire appreciation vocabulary for interactions with cultures that require verbal gratitude, often leading to overcompensation where Senegalese people learning English or French become excessively thankful in ways that sound unnatural to native speakers. International business people working in Senegal must learn to navigate appreciation systems that emphasize long-term relationship building and mutual benefit rather than immediate verbal acknowledgement, creating communication styles that prioritize trust building and reciprocity over politeness conventions. Senegal operates the world's most extensive traditional music copyright system, where griot families own exclusive performance rights to specific songs, stories, and genealogies that can be inherited, sold, or licensed for centuries. Sounds impossible. But Senegal's oral tradition includes sophisticated intellectual property concepts that predate written copyright law by hundreds of years, creating hereditary ownership systems for cultural content that generate ongoing income for traditional artist families. Griot families possess exclusive rights to perform specific praise songs, historical narratives, and genealogical recitations associated with particular noble families, ethnic groups, or regions, with these performance monopolies passed down through bloodlines and protected by complex social enforcement mechanisms. The system operates through detailed ownership records maintained in the collective memory of senior griots who can recite the complete provenance and ownership history of thousands of songs, stories, and ceremonial performances, creating living databases of intellectual property that span multiple centuries. Here's the incredible part. Modern Senegalese musicians must negotiate with traditional griot families to legally perform or record certain songs, paying licensing fees and royalties that can continue for decades, essentially creating traditional entertainment industries that predate modern record companies by centuries. The copyright enforcement happens through social pressure, community boycotts, and traditional justice systems that can destroy the careers of performers who violate established ownership rights, making griot intellectual property protections more effective than many modern legal systems. Wealthy families pay substantial annual fees to maintain exclusive access to their praise songs and genealogical narratives, viewing these payments as essential investments in social status and cultural identity rather than optional entertainment expenses. The system creates complex inheritance disputes when griot families split or merge, leading to elaborate negotiations about intellectual property division that can involve entire communities in resolving ownership questions about cultural content created centuries earlier. International record companies working with Senegalese artists must navigate traditional copyright systems alongside modern intellectual property law, often discovering that seemingly public domain traditional songs actually belong to specific families who maintain legal claims dating back multiple generations. Senegal is slowly sinking into the Atlantic Ocean due to coastal erosion that consumes 1 to 2 meters of coastline annually, threatening to submerge the capital city Dakar within 50 to 75 years. You heard right. You're looking at a country in the process of disappearing beneath the waves, with Senegal's entire Atlantic coastline retreating inland at rates that will fundamentally reshape the nation's geography and force massive population relocations within the current century. The erosion process accelerates every year due to climate change, rising sea levels, sand mining operations, and coastal development that has destroyed natural protective barriers, creating a perfect storm of environmental factors that devour Senegalese territory with unstoppable force. Dakar, the capital city housing over 3 million people, sits on a peninsula that loses 1 to 2 meters of coastline annually, with some areas experiencing erosion rates of up to 5 meters per year during severe storm seasons, making it one of the fastest disappearing urban centers on Earth. Here's the terrifying reality. Entire neighborhoods that existed 20 years ago now lie underwater, with former residential areas, schools, and businesses completely submerged beneath Atlantic waves that continue advancing inland despite expensive seawall construction and beach replenishment projects. The coastal erosion has already forced over 200,000 people to relocate from their ancestral homes, creating internal refugee populations that strain urban resources and disrupt traditional community structures as entire fishing villages disappear beneath rising waters. The economic impact is catastrophic, with Senegal losing an estimated $500 million annually in coastal infrastructure, agricultural land, tourism facilities, and fishing grounds that simply vanish into the ocean, creating economic losses that exceed the country's entire education and healthcare budgets combined. Traditional fishing communities that have operated from the same beaches for centuries now find their boats launching from temporary locations that move inland every few years, disrupting fishing patterns, cultural practices, and economic relationships that have sustained coastal populations for generations. The government estimates that protecting Dakar from complete submersion would require $2 to $3 billion in coastal engineering projects that the country cannot afford, essentially accepting that the capital city will need to be relocated inland over the coming decades in one of the largest planned urban migrations in African history. Climate scientists predict that by 2100, most of Senegal's current coastline will be underwater, transforming the country's geography so dramatically that current maps will become historical artifacts, documenting a nation that no longer exists in its present form. So we've just discovered Senegal's most incredible secrets, from disappearing coastlines to linguistic hospitality codes that redefine human interaction. Which one shocked you the most? Have you ever experienced culture shock this extreme? Subscribe for more mind-bending facts that'll change how you see our world.